Good evening. Welcome to Employment Law Today. I'm your host, Eric Sarver, employment law, business law attorney and founder of the law office of Eric M. Sarver. And I'm here tonight with a very special guest of mine, Ms. Ani Corless, who is the founder and president of Luxury Groomer. Ani, welcome to the show. Well, I think you might be muted. Ani?
Unmuted now. Hi,
Welcome.
I said thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I think it's really cool what you and your podcast are doing.
Well, thank you. I thought that's what you said. I can relapse a little bit in the time of the pandemic, but great to have you. I'm going to give a more formal introduction of you to our audience and listeners tonight. But before I do, I wanted to just check in with our audience and listeners and talk a little bit about the show and what the main theme is and what I try to do every Tuesday night at 5 p.m. So the main motivation and really the goal of the show, Employment Law Today, is to highlight some of the employment law and business law issues that small and mid-sized business owners and entrepreneurs are facing these days, particularly in the time of the COVID pandemic. And so in that spirit, we have guests each week that speak about either topics that are very relevant to employment law, navigating some of the COVID-19 pandemic rules and regulations that the government set up. We also speak about different services that are now becoming even more critical and more crucial during the pandemic, such as cybersecurity issues, video marketing, employee relations. And we also have a special feature presentation where we spotlight a small business that has adapted, pivoted, and used innovation to keep their business going through the pandemic. And I'm very happy to say that Ani and her business fall into that third category as my guest for the evening. The topic of our show tonight is adapting to adversity, an entrepreneur's journey through the pandemic. And with that, I would just say a little bit more about our topic. Basically, with COVID-19 still lingering, I'm sure many business owners listening tonight, and even those listening later on down the road, are probably feeling worried and maybe a bit worn down. And I always believe it can be inspiring to witness a small business showing creativity and adapting and being successful through this rough storm that we're in. And so in that spirit, I've asked Ani to be on the show. Despite the obstacles that the pandemic posed for Ani as an in-home dog grooming service, that's what our company does. It's a niche boutique area. Despite the challenges that are obvious if you're in a pandemic, she has persevered and gotten creative and pivoted, which I'll ask her about today. And so we'll be talking about, Ani will share some of her insights and experiences, and we hope that we can motivate listeners to be inspired to keep on keeping on during these challenging times. So I want to introduce Ani a little bit in terms of background, if I may. So as I mentioned, by now, you, of course, my guest tonight is still Miss Ani Corless, the founder and president of Luxury Groomer, and which is, as I mentioned, a boutique in-house dog grooming business in New York City and also in the Jersey City area, if I'm not mistaken. And so Ani has began working with animals in one fashion or another during for over 21 years, or actually 24 years, back in 1996. Ani began her career as a veterinarian assistant, and thereafter she attended a school for professional dog grooming and animal grooming. And after a 3-year apprenticeship with an industry-leading groomer in St. Louis, Missouri, Ms. Corless began dog grooming independently in 2012 and founded Luxury Groomer in 2014. Ani's passion and the mission of Luxury Groomer LLC is to make the grooming experience as calm and comfortable as possible for her clients' dogs. She is known for her skill and adeptness in hand scissor work, and Ani and her team of groomers serve Manhattan, parts of Brooklyn, and Jersey City. And lastly, some of Ani's professional dog grooming credentials, for those that are curious and might want to retain Ani for their own pet grooming needs, include a certificate of a dog emotion and cognition from Duke University, an animal behavior and welfare certificate from the University of Edinburgh, a certified pet esthetician from San Bernard, and Ani is also certified in
pet first aid and CPR, and in animal handling and care techniques from the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. Anyway, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hi. You're like, I'm still here. Okay, ready to.
I like hearing my resume. It's nice. I don't read it to myself very often.
It's good, right? It's nice
Yeah,
to
right?
hear it back, right? I mean, just to remind us of our own value, what we bring to our clients, and what to
For
our.
sure.
Yes. So I wanted to leave space. I know I said a lot about you there, but just perhaps the first question might be if you were comfortable telling us maybe something else about yourself. Any little tidbits you might want to our audience to know, or maybe perhaps what sparked your interest in working with animals, or.
Yeah, I mean, I just always loved animals as a kid, and it really happened sort of naturally, when you turn that age of 15, 16 and you say, oh, I need to go get a job. I have a driver's license, in St. Louis is a car city. So I have a driver's license. Where am I going to work? All my friends were getting jobs at the mall and this and that. I just didn't know what I wanted to do until I passed a veterinary clinic and was like, well, I really like animals. I was always into biology and things like that in school. Loved my little dog at home. And so, yeah, I started working at a kennel, and that turned very quickly into vet assisting sort of duties. And then that graduated from there. And I sort of was on the precipice of would I like to pursue vet assisting, veterinary career, or something else. And at that time, I ended up moving with my boyfriend to a smaller town. There was only like 2 vets, and I was sort of stuck without really much work or many options. And their opportunity came up for a grooming school. And I thought, well, let me explore that. And I did. And I would say I'm also a creative person. I've always been into music and photography and things like that. And so I very quickly realized this combined both things for me, and also wasn't as stressful or sad as a vet clinic was, but I really, really, really loved the science of working in a vet clinic. So I liked having both. And what that did moving forward was sort of keep my interest in both, which has become ingrained in our mission statement as a company, because there often is a big disconnect between groomers and vets. They don't talk to each other as much as you would expect and you would hope. And even veterinarians aren't taught very much about grooming specifically in school, and groomers can learn about vet things, and some of them choose to have that knowledge, but you learn a little bit of some stuff when you go to grooming school. Grooming school is also like 12 weeks, right? It's very, very short. So everything in grooming is really continuing education related, and it's up to the groomer. There's no regulations on a city, state, or federal level for groomers. But yeah, what was great for me is it combined everything that I really loved with science, animals, and creativity and art and things like that. So
yeah. And I think it's very nice when we find our niche, we find like an area where we can combine our skills and talents with our passions. And I look at the law that way. It's a chance to be creative, like you. I enjoy music and creative writing, and so it's a chance to apply certain creativity to problem solving. It also has a very analytical side to it, and very bit of exactitude, that nature of it. So it's great to hear you talk about your passion that way, where you have the science, as you mentioned, the biology, and combining your experience in the veterinary world, and then I guess melding that with your creativity with grooming. So that's really, I think, interesting. It probably speaks a lot to your ability to be resilient during this pandemic. And so I was wondering, I wanted to ask you, here you are, you've got this Luxury Groomer LLC. It's a boutique dog grooming. It's in-house. And so I guess a lot of the sort of benefit of it to your clients is that they don't have to leave their home, their apartment, their house. You just come to the door, you come inside, and you groom their pets. And then along comes, this COVID-19 pandemic, and suddenly everyone's afraid to be near someone 6 feet away or, without a mask or in their home. And so I'm just wondering, Annie, if you could tell us, like, when the pandemic first hit, if we around 10 months ago, what were the most challenging aspects for you on a business level?
well, I'll say when it first hit, it was a little bit of I think as it probably was for most people, it was a little bit of a ripple effect where it took people a few days to a week or so to decide, like, when are we shutting down? What are we shutting down? How do we feel about this? Are we going to adapt? And that was back when everyone kept being told 3 weeks and 3 weeks and 3 weeks. I didn't for a second personally believe that, just because I have a very close groomer friend who had moved to Italy and was living an hour outside of Milan. And we had been in very close contact for a long time before that. And I was sort of getting all those predictors of what was about to happen. But also when I finally stopped working probably a week before my groomers, because I had been told by a client that I had been in their house like 5 days before and they had tested positive. The whole family was positive and they were quite sick. So I immediately shut it down. And in the beginning, that's what it was. It was just sort of stop everything and everybody be safe. The first thing I did to adapt was, okay, what can I do while sitting at home? And the very first thing we were doing was offering Zoom calls to help people maintain their dogs at home. Because the thing is, this isn't just a luxury, it's a necessity. And it is a medical situation for dogs if you go too long, right? And some of the dogs that we do are quite elderly, and that's why they can't go to a shop. They can't get vaccinations because they're a certain age and the shops have to require because of city vaccinations. And sometimes elderly stuff comes along with stuff that needs to be groomed, taken care of, right? They might get this crazy stuff around their eyes that has to be washed off in a way that a groomer kind of knows how to do, or their nails grow up into their pads, things like that, right? So, never in my life did I try to anticipate trying to tell a customer how to groom their dog on this level, but now you have to, you got to get it done, right? So what are we going to do? So I was asked to host multiple ones. I think Bond Vet Clinic had me on for 200 or 300 people, and a trainer in the city dog pack had me on as sort of a grooming mentor. And I have a little like fake dog that it comes with a wig, and it's for people who are wanting to train in grooming or try creative grooms on fake hair first. And I was able to use that and on camera kind of show people, okay, we'll try to do this and this. And people could book a one-on-one where I would sit there on camera throughout the entire groom and show them, nose to tail, what can we get done? If you have to shave it, let's shave it, like whatever needs to be done. Once we realized this was going to go on for months, and there's definitely dogs that can't go that long without being groomed. We have tons of people that left the city altogether and they weren't going to a groomer out there, or there wasn't a groomer out where they were. So that was the first thing that we did. And the other thing I did was make a YouTube video. It's like a 7-minute video on how to brush and comb your dog. Because at least brushing and combing for a lot of people gets them through they can go quite a long time. But not everybody knows how to do it really properly. So that video has been hugely helpful and shared a lot. That was the first stage of how we pivoted.
Right. There's a lot there that what I hear, and that's only stage one. We're going to get more into that. We have to take a quick commercial break, but folks, stick around. I'm Eric Sarver, host of Employment Law Today here on Talk Radio NYC, with my special guest tonight, Ani Corless from Luxury Groomer. We've got a lot more interesting ground to cover. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Do you love, or are you intrigued about New York City and its neighborhoods? I'm Jeff Goodman, host of Rediscovering New York, a weekly show that showcases New York's history and its extraordinary neighborhoods. Every Tuesday live at 7 p.m., we focus on a particular neighborhood and explore its history, its vibe, its feel, and its energy. Tune in live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Hey, all you listeners, looking to boost your business? Why not advertise on Talk Radio NYC with very reasonable rates? Interested? Simply send us a message on our website, talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Graham Dobbin. Join me every Thursday evening for the Mind Behind Leadership here on talkradio.nyc. We speak to people from business, sport, military and politics, all around what makes a great leader. the personal experiences of what's worked and maybe more importantly, what hasn't worked. So that's 7 o'clock every Thursday evening, the Mind Behind Leadership here on talkradio.nyc. Listen to real stories of real leaders.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Welcome back to Employment Law Today, here with my guest tonight, Ms. Ani Corless, founder and president of Luxury Groomer. And we're having a great conversation so far. For those that might be joining in late, I asked Ani to describe the most challenging aspect of the pandemic when it first hit and what her reaction was. And Ani, if I may, just kind of my observations and my own experience with both my practice, but also more with my clients who are as you know, business owners and service providers.
I like how you said something very, I think, astute. In the beginning, it was very much like a shock, sort of just the world was going on its axis. It's almost as if the world just stopped spinning. And I noticed that for a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs out there, the initial weeks were hard, but it almost felt a little bit simplified because we all, or I should say many of us, thought it'd be a shorter period than it was. And you said you were wise to the fact that it was going to be likely longer. You were correct in that assessment. I think we're all being told, right, pardon me, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, a month, 2 months. But certainly there's that sort of initial shock. And, businesses and people can react to shock differently. Some become very much paralyzed and others take action. And without judging either approach, because really, it's hard to really can't cast judgment during a pandemic. It's just an unprecedented time. But, so I heard you talk about just kind of that immediate shock of that. But then I heard you say that you took action and you went online and did the grooming sort of online, tutorials and making a YouTube video. That's something that I've tried to impart to my listeners and also to some of my clients, that if you're in a situation with this pandemic, think about what you can do. Think about what is your model of providing services, and can you pivot? Which kind of brings me to maybe another follow-up question, if I may, kind of walking through the pandemic. So you've passed the part where it's the initial shock, and you're doing these online tutorials and a YouTube video. I'm wondering, how did you, for long-term, pivot from an in-house grooming, a dog grooming service rather, to a sustainable, right, to an active dog grooming service? How did you get the grooming part back up and running again?
So I feel like, when did we start? Maybe May we started doing that again. And it was definitely up to my workers whenever they were comfortable. I never told anyone when they should or shouldn't work. It's when do you feel comfortable, and when, what can I do? Same with the clients. I mean, I can't tell anyone what to do in this. For one, I'm not going to tell my workers they can't make money, right? If they need the money after, I think we were all shut down at least 2 months, right? So it was like, and we weren't getting, a ton of these Zoom calls. We were getting a little here and there from our clients, and that was great. I mean, it kept us sane for one, and for two, it felt good to really help. The other calls I was on as a host were just free, right? And the YouTube thing was free. That was just to be helpful. And I think that was also something that felt good during that time, was how can I help, right? And that was one way that I could help, of one of the weird, it's a sideways way, but for people who have dogs that need to be groomed and they understand the concern of when they do go too long, or they're getting mad at, or they have a medical thing, it is very helpful for that. So I was happy to do it. But that wasn't going to sustain us as a business. So when we decided to get a little more comfortable and get back in, I think was in May. 2 of my workers have vehicles, so they felt more comfortable because they were not going to use the subway. And we had discussed with clients, when how we would have certain precautions and PPE and what we would ask of them as well, because we have to go into their home, right? And it was almost like you couldn't decide what would feel more comfortable at the time, whether a shop would feel more comfortable, like a grooming shop, or going in home. And in the end, for me, I still felt more comfortable in the home, because I felt like a salon was just too many dogs or too many people. I don't know how they ended up doing it, but either way, because otherwise I was going to maybe look for a space, or we were considering, they make these mobile grooming vans. We were going to consider that, but so much of our service has to do with us coming there and the dog remaining in its own space. As soon as you take them out of that, it can potentially, get them more nervous or whatever. And we take a lot of these dogs that have either had a bad, experience somewhere, or they're just genuinely so elderly or so nervous that as soon as they exit the front door. So yeah, we started going in home again, but we had protocols and PPEs and everything else. And that was also back when people weren't sure exactly how it spread. And I think we still aren't necessarily, experts at this now, but we do have a much better understanding. And what was interesting is the first few people that called and were ready for appointments were doctors. So I felt pretty confident that the precautions I was taking were good when they would ask me, and then they approved. And I thought, okay, now I feel more comfortable even myself. It was scary in the beginning for me to go out, and I was taking cabs. My other people were driving because they could find parking in Manhattan back then during those first few months. Yeah, they were able to actually find parking. So that worked out for us. And people, but the other challenge though, is that people had left. Our clients had left. Our clients are mainly Manhattan, 96th Street and below, and then just across the bridge into parts of Brooklyn. And then as of very recently, Jersey City, because one of my groomers moved out of Manhattan and now lives in Jersey City. So we're offering services there. That's how that happened. But yeah, we started doing that. It was all about the PPP and stay away from us and, the whole nine. But it took, okay, well, our clients here, are they coming back? Everybody left. So everything, just like with most businesses now, I mean, you're dealing with New York City changing as a whole, as a business, not just adapting to COVID. So yeah, we had to deal with that. It's been great. It's kept me sane. I think it's kept them sane as well, because we were able to get out of the house and have a sense of normalcy. And I think even with some of our customers are used to seeing us and talking to us just like hairdressers. And so you had a sense of normalcy. They might be 15 feet across the room, but with a mask on, but they're talking, and it kind of feels like, hey, how you doing? Everybody's checking in, and you feel a sense of normalcy back. Yeah. So that was really good, but we still had to face the challenge of the people that weren't comfortable with us going into the home, or certain homes that we weren't comfortable, just because maybe the layout or how it was. Now, the other challenge that we faced is we're working with sharp instruments and sometimes very wiggly dogs or whatever the case may be, which was fine before. People would have us come when they weren't home, or if they were home, they would go into another room. Kids were at school. Now this isn't the case. All the kids are home. So the challenge with that is distractions when you're trying to groom a dog with sharp instruments, right? So you have the kid running into the room or whatever. Luckily, it has really not been a problem. People have been really, really great. We've been adapting, they've been adapting, but there's still people that aren't comfortable or we're not comfortable. So we did make another adaptation and another shift where we were able to team up with a vet clinic in town, because the vet clinics are not letting people in to their exam rooms either, unless there's something serious like a euthanasia, but otherwise you wait on the sidewalk with your dog and they'll take them in and this and that. So that means they have unused exam rooms. So we were able to team up with this vet that says, hey, you want to use our unused exam rooms, you can do that, right? So one dog in and out at a time. They come in off the street from the sidewalk directly into an exam room, just by me. I pick them up off the street, you text us. And the exam rooms at this particular clinic are on one level, and the clinic itself and all of their staff and all of those dogs are on the lower level. So it's really isolated. And being an exam room, it's sterile. I mean, it's a stainless steel table that serves as a grooming table. Everything is sterilized between dogs. There's no cages. It's one dog in and out, just like it would be in the home. but in a sterile room that's not their house and not my house and not, so we've had that as an option, which has been really, really wonderful. And that actually came about because, again, we keep these close relationships with veterinarians. And in fact, I groomed 2 of the vets at that clinic's dogs myself, but also, well, I should back up. One of the other shifts that I took, and one of the things I did with my downtime was getting a few extra certifications. So I've always kind of been known for my handling. So I'm great at haircuts. My groomers are fantastic at haircuts, but we also do focus a lot on how the dogs are handled and just being sort of the extra gentle groomers and being really good at that, which of course we have to if we're going to take elderly dogs or stressed dogs or anything like that. So, being bored and stuck at home, I thought, well, what other things can I learn? Even though I've been doing this 21 years, there's always something to learn. And so I did get what's called a fear-free certification. That's something new. I had only kind of been hearing about it the last few years, since 2016 or 17. I'd kind of heard it floating around, and mainly because it's mainly in the vet field that I hear it. But they have a fear-free certification for groomers, which is right up my alley. It's very much how I've been grooming my whole career. The person I apprenticed under taught me those techniques in that way. But now I'm able to put a certification on it. And I did learn, another thing or two, but it was great because it kind of went in line with how I groom anyway, but now I can put a label on it, right? So I'm adding value to myself and my company. I had not particularly taken new clients in like 3 years. All new clients went to my groomers. I had a set clientele, and our clients are regular, right? Like they don't leave unless they're leaving New York. So I hadn't taken a new client, but here was an opportunity for me to do something new and shift everything, which meant me taking new clients.
I mean, wow, there's a lot that I hear there that's really spot on, right in the money in terms of what to do during a pandemic or what to do in times of crisis. And one thing that really resonated with me, Annie, that you said is that you wanted to feel sane, wanted to feel helpful. And I heard you say that a few times, like your videos, your YouTube videos, right? Your assistance with people was giving feedback and even the instructional guides were to feel helpful. And I think, that's something that I think a lot of our listeners can relate to or take in as perhaps a lesson in terms of how to be sustainable during this pandemic, is that, when one feels helpless or powerless over the situation, and I think a lot of us experience that, right? I mean, all of a sudden we can't go to restaurants, people are not able to travel and kids are home from school, and there is a whole high stress situation. But just to be able to say, how can I help other people, and have that be the main point? I think that was really something that I heard in your story. And I also heard, creativity and collaboration. And that's something that I have spoken with my clients about. And it's funny because I'm an employment law and business law attorney. So, collaboration and getting creative isn't always what the conversation entails. But I remember in the beginning just trying to give as much help as possible to my clients. Just some calls were consultations, some were just giving feedback, providing links to the PPP loans and such. And some, of course, involved paid work in that regard. And others was just answering questions. But being of help to people, having that service in mind can really help to stay calm, stay sane, and then to open up the sort of that channel for creativity. I'd like to talk more about this with you and hear more from you about this topic, but we need to take a commercial break. So everyone out there, you're listening to Employment Law Today, or maybe you're watching live. I am your host, Eric Sarver, employment law and business law attorney at the law office of Eric M. Sarver. And I'm here with Ani Corless, founder and president of Luxury Groomer, and in-house, and as you've now heard, out-of-house dog grooming professional service. Stick around, we'll be right back.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Are you interested in having a better relationship with yourself, others, and God? Greetings. I'm your host, Dr. George Andow, for the show A Journey Through into Awareness. On my show, we journey into the awareness that the mind of God is the true seat of our personal consciousness. We join together each Monday at 7 p.m., so tune in on Talk Radio NYC.
You know you have it, the potential for a more rewarding life, a life that matters. But how do you get there? The answer is in a best-selling book by the coach of the successful and wealthy, Ken D. Foster, The Courage to Change Everything, Daily Strategies and Wisdom to Awaken Your Hidden Genius and Transform Your Life. With this powerful yet amazingly simple daily guide, your future is in your hands. You will be empowered to unlock your potential, bring out your true gifts, increase your wealth, and take your life and business to a new level. Get your life-transforming copy of Ken D. Foster's The Courage to Change Everything by going to couragetochange.us. That's couragetochange.us. Quite frankly, there's no other book like this. Imagine what your life could be like if you had at your fingertips the success principles to create the life you've always wanted. Are you ready to live your dream? Go to couragetochange.us.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to Employment Law Today. I'm your host, Eric Sarver, here on talkradio.nyc with my guest tonight, Ani Corless. Ani, really some great things jumped out. Again, as we mentioned before the break, you talked about being of service, talked about teaming up with veterinarians, and I was going to ask you how that came about, and then you kind of answered that question by describing how you had relationships with veterinarians over the years. And I think the decision to rent out or use that space, that sterile space, must have been a positive. Was that a positive attraction, would you say, for your clients, knowing that the space was sterile and used by a medical professional such as a veterinarian?
Yeah, I would hope so. What was interesting, though, is I think by the time that opportunity came about and we were able to offer that, people's fears had shifted as far as how they felt about the virus. I think had we been able to offer that in like March, April, it would have been used more. But by the time we were offering it, which I can't remember how long ago that was, a number of months ago, but by then people had kind of relaxed a little bit. They had already been using us in the home, but we were seeing a second spike in the numbers. So I anticipated things kind of really locking back down. But interestingly, I think we've been able to make people feel quite safe in the home. And so we've still just been doing that, but having that as an option is huge. And, it's worked out on a second level. I should say one of the other reasons it happened, yes, we work closely with these veterinarians, but sometimes because I've become such sort of a specialist in taking some of these tough cases, and now with this fear-free certification, which you can search online. And so even vets that didn't know me before, didn't know I have that now, can see online that I have that. And if someone searches for that because they've got a tougher case that they're looking specifically for that, I'll get a call. So this vet had 2 dogs that had been recently rescued that were knowingly really, really tough to groom, and they were in rough physical shape as far as their coat because they had been recently rescued. And in their case, the veterinarian had felt that they needed to be put on some medication and done under vet supervision, but they don't have a groomer, on site. So I kind of turn into that person that comes, and that's how that happened. Is I had groomed a couple of them there in that situation, and we just got in a conversation about, well, what are you doing with the exam rooms? And they're asking me, what are you going to do if things shut back down? And so we got creative together, because it also allows our customers, if need be, once while they're there, if they decide they want something yearly done or whatever, they can actually team up with that vet and have maybe a missing vaccination done or whatever. And even if it's not their particular veterinarian, it saves them a trip, whatever. We all just were there and to work together and creatively, not only to keep our businesses alive, but to really help our customers, get what they need done in a safe manner that everyone's okay with. But
Yeah. No, pardon me to interrupt you there.
Yeah.
I think it's a very important point to make there too, that, whether you're in, animal grooming or, in say, the sale or in hospitality, I think like the important thing is to really shift the focus towards making the customer or client feel comfortable and safe and trying to give them some semblance of normalcy. And I think that, that's something that you pointed out, Annie, early on, right? When you said you were going to people's houses. And I recall you saying that people just felt good, it seemed, right, to have that sense of normalcy, just that level of, okay, well, we're wearing a mask, we're, 10, 15 feet apart, we're not like hugging hello or whatnot, but, at least I have something that's reliable, a service, right? And I noticed that with restaurants, clients of mine that are restaurants where just even the opening, say, a back space, if you look out now, people are, eating outside in heated tents in, 30 degrees, right? Because they just want like some level of normalcy. And so I think it's important that you talk about, when I think about safety, I hear you mention that the fear-free, if I'm saying it in that order correctly, right? The fear-free certificate. So now I'm just so curious, like what does that entail? If you could tell us a little bit, what is that, how does that translate in terms of your technique or what's involved in that technique?
It just has to do with, to keep it brief and simple, it just has a little bit to do with the technique. It's usually sort of, shying away from muzzles and restraints and more taking the time to cognitively change the dog's response to grooming actions, right? Which is also why I paired it with the dog emotion and cognition certificate as something else I got from the Duke University while under quarantine. Because again, it was like, let's further our education. Let's add more value to myself as a groomer and to my company. And watching our company lose clients to moving out of New York, we didn't know at the time how much was permanent, how much wasn't, was sort of like, okay, I have to shift. Whereas my shift before was, okay, I'm running a company where I have people working, doing the grooms, and obviously I'm doing the grooms, but eventually I'll need to shift to where I'm grooming less and running the company more because it's a physical job. I can't do this into my 60s or whatever. So that was the plan before. But one of the pivots I made was, well, guess what? That's not happening now. And after we're losing clients, it's sort of like, okay, well, now I have openings, but I don't want to take new clients from my workers. This is actually a good opportunity to give people a choice. So now I'm sort of the specialist, right? I'm the specialist. So what that also meant was I raised my prices for me specifically, right? Now I cost more than my other groomers. And it's for that reason, right? That someone has to really want me for the specific reasons, which is a huge risk to take in the middle of something that's like, making people fearful of spending and things like that. To raise prices and somewhat significantly was a huge risk. But I also stand by the fact as a company owner, if you are adding value, don't undercharge for what you're doing. If you can't charge for what that is that you're doing, then don't offer that service. Offer something else that you feel the price would match the service that you're offering. So I had to make the decision, are people going to go ahead and want this service? And, so far, like the answer's been a resounding yes, because it is a specific specialty. I mean, I'm getting the dogs that the really special cases, right? Which works out perfect because I can't do 10 dogs a day. I can do, 2 or 3 a day, which is the amount of dogs that are calling for that kind of thing, right? And sometimes it's just temporary. Sometimes they just need that special once or twice, or to get them started, or to rehabilitate them for X amount of grooms, or when they're recently rescued and they have to be done in the vet clinic, 1 or 2 or under a specific situation. And some people definitely pay me continually because they've had a bad experience somewhere else. So the dog's trauma is going to take longer to fix, or they just care very much about the haircut I gave it. You know, it depends. But the point is that that's my value. But it was a really, really scary risk to take in the middle of a pandemic to raise my prices or do anything to my business that could jeopardize it, you know, at all.
Sure. It's definitely scary. It's definitely a very bold and courageous step. You know, I commend you for it. I think that a lot of times in this pandemic, we've heard people, the sort of the instinct is if you're running off of fear, you know, to charge less or to keep the rates the same, or, you know, people are so fearful that they're going to lose customers, that they're going to lose clients, that they're offering a lot of these services for free. And mind you, I mean, granted, there is some benefit, there is some value to offering some type of gratis, like we talked about earlier today, you know, earlier this evening, when you were doing the video, you know, on YouTube, that's not charging for that time. But ultimately, your services have a value. And, you know, one thing you did, I heard that you did, and you mentioned this throughout the show and early on, is that you, in the pandemic, right, use that time as an opportunity to enhance your qualifications and skills. And that's something that I think a lot of our small business listeners can take away from this, right? If you've got down, I don't want to say downtime, because honestly, this is not a giant 10-month vacation, right? Downtime seems to imply it's like relaxed, it's slow, you know, but if you've got, say, gaps in time, maybe you're not doing the same work, can you, and I think should you be enhancing your skills and qualifications like you did, Annie? And so then of course the next question comes up in terms of your rates. I mean, sure, as you pointed out, not only are you offering more value, but you are taking more risks, because even though I'm sure you're obviously responsible, and you talk about using protective equipment and taking taxis instead of public transportation. So, you know, you're doing things that are safe, but there is inherently a risk in giving your services, especially if you're public facing, right, during a pandemic and a deadly one such as this. So I think you have every right to raise your rates. And I think it's just, again, it's one of those things where it's scary and it could be counterintuitive, but if we can learn something from Annie tonight, and the answer from her clients was a resounding yes to that. And I think that also, you know, speaks to another point I want to hope to get across to our audience tonight, which is if you approach your work with passion, like you do, Annie, I'm going to hear it. I hear your care for for the dogs, for the, it's interesting. I hear you talking about the pets as if they're the direct client, as opposed to the pet owners, even though, of course, the pet owners are, the ones paying the money and everything, but really just, to see them as patients almost. It's a very, valuable, I think, lesson for people to really hear. So we still have more time, but we have to take our commercial break very shortly. So when we come back, I'll be asking Annie for some takeaways, maybe about what inner resources she was drawing upon to make these bold and brave decisions and such. So along with any practical tips, well, additional ones, you've given many right now. So anyway, we've got to take a commercial break. Stick around, folks. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Are you a small business trying to navigate the COVID-19 related employment laws? Hello, I'm Eric Sarver, employment law business law attorney and host of the new radio show, Employment Law Today. On my show, we'll have guests to discuss the common employment law challenges business owners are facing during these trying times. Tune in on Tuesday evenings from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Do you run or are ready to open your own business? Hi, I'm Jeremiah Fox. I've been operating and opening small business for the last 25 years, and I'm the host of the new show, The Entrepreneurial Web. Tune in every Friday at noon Eastern Time for insights and stories on the nuances of running small business right here on Fridays at noon, talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to Employment Law Today here on Talk Radio NYC. I'm your host, Eric Sarver, employment law and business law attorney and owner and founder of the law office, Eric M. Sarver. Annie, you and I'm here tonight with Ani Corless, my guest. Annie is the president and founder of Luxury Groomer, LLC, a boutique dog grooming service. And Annie, we have some commonalities, even though we're in different areas, different fields. Being self-employed, having workers work for us, being responsible for the buck stops here. And I wanted to just reflect a bit on what you've shared so far, because I really think it can be helpful to fellow dog groomers or to, as I mentioned, to accountants listening tonight who are thinking about, their clients, right? They're facing similar fears about the unknowns of their clients. Will their clients come back, or their clients in the economic straits? And so just right now, there's no question pending, as we say in legal terms here. It's just sort of some reflections, but I think it's important to point these things out and to highlight the fact that, in this pandemic, really it can be a time to take calculated risks, right? Not dangerous risks, but calculated ones, like such as raising your rates, getting additional certifications. I guess what I wondered is, did you have either like a community of support from fellow groomers or a group that you're affiliated with that helped you to persevere through this?
I would say, yeah, I mean, I've got grooming friends. I have other friends that have their own house call businesses. Two of them were two that I was talking to that were, we were talking to each other about, well, maybe we could all go in on one of these grooming vans and find out a way to share it, park it in one of these vets lots or whatever. I think it's helpful to have other people in your industry and not see everyone as competition, right? Because if you're good at what you're doing, there's no competition, right? And it's fine. And it is in times like these when your peers are going to be helpful to you. Unfortunately, we were never able to come up with any way to sort of team up or band together. I think that's just the nature of what we're doing. But had we have, it would have been helpful. And at least it did feel like you're brainstorming together and you're not in it alone. And the good news is, I mean, we were even able to get out to the Hamptons. We're close with a lot of walkers and whatnot as well. And they would let us know, hey, I've got clients in the Hamptons. Of course, we had clients in the Hamptons. And luckily, my groomer with the vehicle was like, okay, I'm willing to go there once every 2 weeks, because it's it's a 4-hour drive. But if we could book a full day for her, then she would go out there, 2 hours that work a day and come back. And especially when not everyone was back in New York, it was a way for her to make the wages and service some of the people out there. Now we don't really have the time or capacity necessarily to get out there. We make no promises. It's not something we'd ever had time to do in the past, but when half your clientele goes there, you find a way to get there, and do what you can do to service people and to keep people going and to keep your clientele and keep your workers paid and keep everything moving and motivated and all that good stuff. But yeah, I mean, staying busy is good. I also use this opportunity to go through my Dropbox and my email and clean it up, right? And stuff like that. And stuff that will keep you sane. Now, that being said, I don't have children. So all love to the people at home. It's so easy for me to say, go learn this and go clean your Dropbox and go, okay,
Sure.
you've got 3 kids running around and you're doing homeschooling. I get it. It's not happening.
Right.
But
Sure.
if you're spinning your wheels and you've got some anxiety or whatever, and you don't know what you can do, one of the first things you can do is clean your email and clean your Dropbox and start there. And then sometimes that stuff makes you feel, and even just like go on Coursera and be like, what little thing can I take right now? It makes you feel better about yourself, and join some online groups in your field and just watch what other people are saying. Maybe you get an idea, that kind of thing. Just keep moving, at the end of the day, just keep on trucking.
Yeah. I think there are a couple of important points there to really kind of break down here. Number one, just the importance of some kind of community and connection. And I think one of the hardest parts of this pandemic is the isolation that comes with it. I mean, by nature, right? I mean, especially for people, let's say if they're immune compromised or if a certain, say, age category, whatnot, that it's unlike other challenges I think we face as people, right? When tragedy strikes, what do? We band together. When there's a horrific mass shooting like Las Vegas, people have candlelight vigils. They come together, right? When their 9/11 hit, people come together because we need other people in our lives to get through these times. And here we are in this pandemic, and people are getting sick or afraid of getting sick, and it's a hardship on many levels, and yet the thing that brings us as humans comfort is hard to do. So I think having a support group, whether it's your colleagues, whether it's friends or both, very important. So I'm glad you made that point. And then, really appreciate your other point because, as you said, everyone needs to evaluate their own circumstances. So, nothing we're saying here tonight is meant to be sort of a, you should be doing this, listener, why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you getting degrees? It's more that, hey, this is what, right, one of our guests, like Annie here, is able to do with her situation and the resources she has. And one resource, of course, is time. And for people who might be, whether you're swamped at home with, 3 homeschooled children, and maybe you're able to get one upgrade in your qualifications. Maybe you're able to take one course, maybe not several. Maybe you can't do that at all, and that's okay. Maybe you just need to prioritize, focus on your family. But I think that's a really important point because we want people to be inspired and motivated. And that's the reason why I bring on occasionally featured business owners like yourself, who are making a go at this. But we want people to be motivated and inspired, not to feel like overwhelmed and compare themselves and saying, oh, how come I didn't do all that? So really good to point that out. I appreciate your, giving that to our viewers tonight, our listeners tonight. I mean, it's funny because I had some questions all written up and you actually answered a number of them, including some practical tips, right? Operational tips, and just, how you pivoted and how you found the resources to do so. I'm wondering.
One of the biggest things, if I can interrupt, is
please do. Yeah.
Listen to what, depending on what kind of business you're in, listen to what people are asking for, because now there's unique challenges that didn't used to be there before. So that's sometimes an opportunity to find a little niche to fill, right? And part of like for mine, fear-free certification and blah, blah, blah. Look, I was always good at that because I was from Missouri, which is home of the puppy mills, which therefore is home of the rescues. And so you kind of, if you were going to be a good groomer, especially with who I apprenticed under, you were going to learn how to groom them well without sedation and fighting and biting and all that other fun stuff, right? Sure. Well, when I came here, most of the dogs here are treated very, very well. They behave very, very well. But what happened during the pandemic? Everyone rescued, right? Everyone rescued dogs. So now this comes up again. Okay, well, let me come out of retirement. It's my time to shine, but let me do it in a way that is productive for my business. And let me not just say, oh, I've been doing this 20 years, trust me. Let me go ahead and put a label on it. There didn't used to be certifications for this. Now there is. Cool. I put a label on it. I raised my prices. It was risky, but I put all in on it. And I know the value is there. I know I'm good at doing this. And of course, my other groomers are absolutely amazing. I just don't want to speak for them and have them do those tough cases all day. I'll take that on myself. But, listen to what might be a pocket or a challenge that you can fill for your business or your clients. You know, there's usually opportunities in crisis somewhere.
Yes, very true. I found that for myself with clients who are facing sort of new challenges around navigating the paid time off and all the different paid Family Leave Act and the around the Coronavirus CARES Act and so forth. So it's definitely, I think, a really good point worth making. In the last 2 minutes, we have a hard stop in 2 minutes. I want to. This is where I turn the floor over to you, Annie, and say, in a wrap up, if you would care to share with our viewers, how do they contact you, or information, anything, any upcoming events you're doing? The floor is all yours.
Sure. So, I mean, the company name is Luxury Groomer. So you can pretty much find us at Luxury Groomer anything. We just started a TikTok. Please feel free to go on there and make fun of me. I'm still learning how that all works. But we're most, where you can kind of see all the cuteness of our work is really Instagram at Luxury Groomer. We have a Facebook. It's not as active as I'd like, but, I post some cute things on there once in a while, and it has the photos from Facebook. Everyone likes to look at the photos. And of course, you can find us at luxurygroomer.com. And I myself am hoping to start a podcast very soon, which is why I have these very fancy mic and earphones. And so I will be updating everyone on that when it comes. It should be called Pause and Reflect, where we can talk about the pet industry and things like that, and hopefully share tons of valuable information with people.
Pause, like PWS. I got the, that's a cute play of words. I like that. So our guests can find Annie and her company at Luxury Groomer, LUXURY.
Oh, and of course at YouTube, definitely. Yes. Sorry. Definitely check out the YouTube, because there's some helpful videos where we sit down with vets and answer questions about tear staining and how to brush your dog and anal glands. Sorry, I had to say that word on your podcast, but there's some good stuff on there. Again, just at Luxury Groomer.
Annie, I want to thank you so much before we have to end for your time tonight. I'm Eric Sarver, host of Employment Law Today. Join us Tuesdays, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and tune in for Joseph Franklin McElroy and his show Gateway to the Smokies coming right up. Thank you and have a good night.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www